530. Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. A group of bipartisan senators are working behind the scenes to find the ever-elusive common ground on new gun control legislation. This comes as President Biden welcomed a foreign counterpart who ushered in sweeping gun reform in her own country. CBS's Skyler Henry has the latest from Washington.
Until I spoke to every
President Biden remarked on a tragic metric of his time in office.
I've been to more mass shooting aftermaths than I think any president in American history.
Tuesday, the president welcomed New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, who oversaw swift new gun control measures in her own country after a mass shooting there in 2019.
In the aftermath of that, the New Zealand public had an expectation that if we knew what the problem was, that we do something about that.
President Biden promised to meet with Congress on guns, but gave no further detail. Speaking in their home state of Connecticut, Democratic Senators Richard Blumenthal and Chris Murphy said they plan to put the issue to a vote one way or the other.
My plan is to get a bill, a comprehensive bill, that will save lives. But if we can't get that compromise, then we're going to go ahead and put everybody on the record.
Senator Murphy is leading a bipartisan group of senators working through their recess, considering approaches like expanding background checks and red flag laws.
There are certainly going to be things you can agree on.
The Senate's top Republican, Mitch McConnell, talked about compromise at an appearance in Kentucky, but did not once mention gun control. House Democrats are working on their own package of gun control bills that could include raising the age limit to buy semi-automatic rifles. The House could vote on those as soon as next week, but the legislation faces an uphill battle for 60 votes in the Senate. Skyler Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Legislation introduced yesterday will put a freeze on importing, buying, or selling handguns in Canada. The regulations to halt the growth of personally owned handguns is expected to be enacted this fall. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said his government recognizes the vast majority of Canadians who own guns are responsible, but the level of gun violence is unacceptable. Canada already has plans to ban 1,500 types of military-style firearms and offer a mandatory buyback program that will begin at the end of the year. As Congress debates gun legislation and the community of Uvalde lays victims of last week's school shooting to rest, one Texas religious leader is voicing his concerns about the double standards of pro-life. Archbishop of San Antonio, Gustavo Garcia Siller, said to be pro-life, respect of life has to be consistent from womb conception to natural death and everything in between.
And that means children, the youth, the sick, the drug addicts, the married people, the homeless, the people in death row. We have to be consistent.
The Archbishop said for the most part, politicians are not consistent and they use the term pro-life to promote their base. He questioned the logic of taking care of the baby in the womb only to kill it when it is 9 years old. The town of Uvalde is still working to heal after that mass shooting that killed 21 people. The first funeral for one of those victims took place today. 10-year-old Amory Jo Garza was laid to rest following a funeral at Sacred Heart Catholic Church in Uvalde. The memorial outside Robb Elementary continues to be a site for mourners to pay their respects. Today, as you can see there, actor Matthew McConaughey was seen visiting the memorial at the school. Uvalde is the actor's hometown. A funeral is planned for an unidentified boy found dead in a suitcase in a wooded area in Indiana. The suitcase and subsequently the boy was found in April. The child's autopsy results show he died from an electrolyte imbalance, which occurs when the body loses a significant amount of fluids. The funeral is planned for tomorrow, June 1st. The community has donated almost everything for the service, including a burial plot and a headstone.
A hot and humid day around the mountains this afternoon. We've got another one on the way before some more temperate weather moves in, but unfortunately, and also moves in with rain chances. Outside right now, high knob camera at UVA Wise. They've actually gotten close to a couple of spotty showers this afternoon. That's why they're sitting just a touch lower than everybody else at 77 right now. Out toward Buffalo Mountain here in southern Perry County, well, we've got plenty of sunshine right now. That's driven temperatures up into the mid 80s. Plenty of hot weather. Upper 80s to near 90 out there right now. How about 90 degrees right now in Manchester, the big number right now. Dew points in the mid and upper 60s, making it feel like the upper 80s and low to mid 90s outside, so it is a rather toasty scene. Watching maybe one little downpour, just one. Well, two. Okay, we'll call it two. Near Blackie, between Blackie and Cumberland there. Those will be pushing off to the west if they move much at all as we continue to see the kind of just meander around. Most of the activity remains to our west. So as we head into tonight, most of us stay dry and mostly clear as we head past the sunset hour. We're into the mid and upper 60s tonight. I'll have the latest on when showers and storms move in, and if some of those could be on the strong side coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
All right, Evan, thank you. 22 veterans and one person currently serving in the military die by suicide every day. Members of Operation 23-0 put on their rucksacks and marched to Fort Snelling National Cemetery in Minnesota yesterday to bring awareness and offer help to stop the massive number of military suicides. Reg Chapman reports.
Sometimes all you need is a hug from someone who understands what you've been through and what you're going through right now.
We've all got folks that we miss, and we want to remember them today.
Operation 23-0 members greet each other with hugs. They know the journey they're about to take is an important one. David Peters and Landon Norby started this movement years ago to honor all who made the ultimate sacrifice.
Whether it's a combat vet that's fallen in combat or the wounds that were sustained from combat experience.
22 veterans and one currently serving military member take their life by suicide every day. That's over 8,000 men and women a year, and those are only the reported numbers.
The bad thing is we've lost more from suicide than we have from actual combat.
Operation 23-0 raises public awareness of the military suicide rates and provides a network of fellow military members to connect for help and support.
2 years ago, he was still here, so this day means even that much more to me.
Every step along the more than 2-mile trek to Fort Snelling National Cemetery is filled with thoughts of someone special. Norby marches thinking about his buddy who used to walk with him along this path on this particular day.
Less than 2 years ago, my best friend, Brandon, committed suicide. He was a Marine. I worked with him for 14 years at our civilian job together.
Each and every soul on this journey is marching to remember the person who served, and because of that service suffered from the scars of war that are not visible. What is visible is a commitment to always be there.
Be there as a listening ear, being there as a shoulder to cry on. If you start seeing things that aren't looking right, maybe some red flags, reach out.
That was Reg Chapman reporting. If you or someone you know needs help, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255, or you can text the Veterans Crisis Line at 838255. Thousands of unknown U.S. soldiers from World War II will be identified and brought home from Africa. This comes after the U.S. and Tunisia signed an agreement allowing the U.S. to exhume their remains from the only American cemetery in Africa. The cemetery near the Mediterranean Sea is the burial site for more than 2,800 U.S. service members from the North African Campaign. The embassy did not say when the process of exhuming will begin. 2 Russian soldiers were sentenced to 11.5 years in jail for violating the laws of war. Alexander Babkin and Alexander Ivanov were found guilty of violating the laws and customs of war, which is a criminal offense under the Criminal Code of Ukraine. Both defendants pleaded guilty. Court officials say they found no evidence of coercion and ruled that the men's guilt has been fully proven. As Russia remains defiant in the face of sanctions from the West, the European Union is trying to deal a blow to the Kremlin's war in Ukraine. The compromise for a partial Russian oil ban took weeks to hammer out. It blocks more than 2/3 of Russian oil imports immediately and 90% by the end of the year.
Certainly, we cannot prevent Russia to sell their oil to someone else. We are not so powerful, but we are the most important client for Russia. They will have to look for another one, and certainly they will have to decrease the price. The purpose is for the Russians to get less resources, less financial resources to feed in the war machine, and this certainly will happen.
Pipeline imports will be exempt from the sanctions. The European Union's oil ban would cut the financial resources Russia would spend on the war in Ukraine. President Joe Biden met with his Treasury Secretary and the Federal Reserve Chairman today as he lays out his plan to try and get inflation under control. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has signaled he will continue to support raising interest rates until prices fall to a stable level. The Consumer Price Index hit 8.3% in April, while oil prices ticked up Tuesday after the European Union announced that embargo on most Russian oil imports. George Washington University professor Tara Sinclair says right now economists are looking at two possible scenarios for what happens next.
There's arguments that we might be concerned about inflation for some time to come, or that we might be facing a recession in the next 6 to 12 to 18 months.
Sinclair says she believes the picture will become clear in the next few months, but the real economic impact may not be known until next year. In an op-ed, President Biden also detailed his plan to curb inflation, which includes fixing supply chains, improving infrastructure, and paying down the federal deficit. Food safety regulators say organic strawberries are the likely cause of a hepatitis A outbreak in several states and Canada. At least 15 illnesses were reported in California and one each in Minnesota and North Dakota. The fresh organic strawberries were sold between March 5th and April 25th under the brand name Fresh Campo, or HEB. They were sold at stores including Aldi, HEB, Kroger, Safeway, Sprouts Farmers Market, Trader Joe's, Walmart, Weis Markets, and Winco Foods. The FDA recommends anyone who ate those berries in the last 2 weeks and has not been vaccinated against hepatitis A to consult with their doctor immediately to determine if any intervention is needed. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, credit card use is increasing across the country. Tips on how to use your credit card even when faced with an unexpected expense. That's next.
And you know about the sunshine in the forecast, but showers are back tomorrow as well. The latest on the return of mid to late week rain chances coming up.
WYMT News app offers alerts on breaking stories as they happen.